welcome to Revived and Renovated. Thank you so much for joining us. We love to have these conversations. I'm here with my friend Victoria Duerstock. I'm Paige Rien. We are authors, moms, creatives, ladies on a journey, women on a journey, and ladies. And we come together every week to talk about words that magically have a lot of meaning in the world of design in the home and in sort of the soul and the spirit. And we try to find all those parallels. Today, I don't know, I feel a soapbox coming with this word, Victoria. Renamed is our word. I don't know. People know I have a thing with labels and stuff like that. I don't know if I should start hot and heavy like that.
Well, I know, right? So let's kind of talk spiritual and then we can talk home. And then I think of the beauty of the picture of adoption in Bible. You know, we're adopted as sons and daughters of God. And when we are brought into his family through salvation, and that is just a beautiful thing to think about, being renamed. It's identity. You brought this up just a little while ago. You said it's a new identity. I love that.
Well, certainly the first time I was ever part of a Bible study was a few years ago, not that long ago, maybe when my kids were tiny babies. And I remember being addressed as a daughter of Christ. And you are a child of God, but you're a daughter of God. You know, I'd never considered that before. And that is a new identity, or that is an identity that had been foreign to me. And actually, it's weird. I have chills even saying that, because it's a concept that makes me feel loved and dignified and wanted and intended and very taken care of. And I think there's a lot of meaning in that name, in that word. There's a lot of power in it. And I think, you know, a lot of times we need to be lifted up, and sometimes just the mere knowledge that God wanted us. We were as adopted children. I remember, and I think in that same study, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the spirit of adoption, especially in biblical times, was very, very powerful, because I guess legally you could disown your own birth child, but you could never, ever disown an adopted child. And so I remember learning this at a Bible study. And so the fact that God uses the language of adoption is very, very meaningful, and it's like on purpose, not, you know.
Yeah,
so
absolutely on purpose. I agree. I think having that knowledge, and even I've always enjoyed studying what names mean, and how, you know, it's interesting the names that we do arrive at. You know, when you name your children, you kind of look at the meaning of their name, and some names don't have a lot of meaning, and you go, okay, but then some names really mean something, and they mean something whenever we name after maybe a family member, or it's a family name that goes down generation to generation. So I love even thinking about the meaning of a name and what it means. Victoria means victorious spirit. And, you know, if you shorten it and use my Vicky, which a lot of people call me Vicky as well, it means leader, you know, and I am like, yeah, because I like to be in charge. So
when I did name my children, it's so funny. I wanted to like invent new names, because I'm a creative person. We're going to literally invent a word with letters that's never been used before. I wanted a whole new identity for them. I also married into a family where everyone's named after someone else. I thought, we're not going to do that. I want a wholly different,
so original,
formation, change the letters. And literally I was like looking at because my husband's very outdoorsy, these outdoor places in Colorado, changing names around. And then I had actually a medical problem in my first pregnancy, and my father-in-law, God rest his soul, was just the most incredible man. And he had a conversation with me in my pregnancy where he just showed me such tenderness, and he shared with me a little bit about his wife's medical journey, that my husband had lost his mother before we met. And he told me with such tenderness, advice. I mean, this is like someone taking time out of their day to really tenderly minister to me in my time of being confused medically, and I needed a blood transfusion. I had like all this decisions to make, and it was very, very nerve-wracking. I think he was on the highway, and he like pulled over and talked to me through this. And I got off the phone. I'm like, we're naming our son Francis, because your dad is who I want my son to become. He just exemplified this selflessness and this love and this service, and and the name means something. And if I had said I couldn't have two Francis in my house, but actually we named him, my son, his full name, which is Francis Xavier, and we call my son Xavier. But that is very meaningful to me that my father-in-law became connected to my son.
I think that's beautiful, you know, and being renamed when God gets a hold of us and gives us a new identity, you know, that's just a beautiful story in and of itself too. And so spiritually, I think it's just beautiful. But sometimes, you know, when we get in our homes, worrying about names can be a little difficult. And I know you have a passion about this. So talk to me about styles and names and all the vocabulary.
I struggle with, first of all, I think a lot of the style labels for the home are sort of manufactured, literally. They're produced by marketers and like the big furniture makers and decorative, and these companies who decide what modern or boho or farmhouse, and they really make it on a whim, sometimes related to almost no truth. And so that bothers me. And then there's a lot of people that say, well, I like this style. And then when you say like a style, people wear it like a straitjacket and you can only put things in your home. And I understand some people need order. I have more eclectic taste, so I feel very free to borrow from almost any design legacy or any era. But I think that sometimes the labels and the names we can get very stuck on. And I think I would want to invite people to be curious about certain names. I mean, some of these traditions are fascinating, like the origins of modern design are fascinating. It's so interesting about like the dawn of the 20th century when people were like, we don't want any detail, artifice, ornamentation. We want to strip things down to their simplest forms in architecture, in consumer goods, and in homes, and that's where that really came from. It was like finding utility and beauty and simplicity in materials, and I get excited about it. And then people refer to things as modern. I'm like, that's not modern. That's not modern, but we're slapping it on to anything that isn't maybe something else, or misusing it. So I get fired up about it, but I think in general, I want to encourage people to be curious about names. And by the way, how we change names constantly, because we were talking earlier about, is it a bureau? Is it a dresser? Is it an armoire? Is it a console? Is it a, credenza? Is it all these different words that kind of, depending on the store, they call it something different. Is it end table? Is it a side table? Is it,
right. I know. Is it? Like, what is the right answer? I guess it depends on where you live sometimes too.
For sure, I think it's regional. I think sometimes there are some more rigid, like what's a high boy, like there are more rigid rules, but I feel like in general, I want to encourage people not to get lost in that, because let's be real clear on what your needs are and what your desires are for a particular piece, and then what you like, and don't have there's nobody in the police that's going to be like, that should have been a credenza and it's a console. You know what I mean? Like using what you like, and across style names too. Like I think names really disrupt consumers a lot. I think people get really confused about names. I have this theory, I don't know if it's true or not, but I have this theory that the marketers are sometimes using the place names of where we live and renaming furniture. So my town is called Kensington, and I've seen lots of pieces of furniture.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
That work there to give you more comfort and familiarity with a piece, because it's become like, what is this chair? Is it this? Is it that? Is it traditional? Is it? And I think a lot, we could be curious about it, but not feel like it's a straitjacket.
Yeah, I like that. I don't think there's any furniture called Nesbitt. I guess.
If you see that, you'll confirm my suspicion.
If Wayfair comes out with a Nesbitt something, we'll know.
I'm gonna look for it.
But yeah, you're right. Like Kensington is definitely one that's been used for different, styles, not necessarily styles, but different like groups of furniture things have that name. I think, that old fashioned term of chifforobe, that's actually still technically a thing. It's got the drawers in it and they got the hanging space, but everybody calls that stuff armoire now. It's all the same, right?
Right. And I think there's generational shifts and changes. And I remember my grandparents used to refer to certain things. I mean, is it a divan? Is it a sofa? Is it, all these other things. I think it's kind of fun. And I like all the old terminology. And I have some great old encyclopedia of furniture that I love to look at. And I think, I guess the only problem with it is when we sort of get hung up or feel like, well, this should be this or this should be that, and not focusing on maybe what we need or what our families need. And that also, sometimes I think it can feel overwhelming to keep up with it all. But then we're kind of falling into that belief that that things are timely or of the moment or chic or in. And if I don't get clear on it, then I'm going to be out. And I wish I could just take that fear from everybody.
I can appreciate a lot of different things, but they don't all necessarily go together well, in a home. So you have to have a little bit of a discerning eye, but that doesn't mean you have to be only macrame and green plants.
Well, and I think also this speaks to trends. It's actually, somebody said something to me on Instagram the other day. She said, it's amazing where we have access to so many more people's homes through social media. I mean, literally, you're looking at more home pictures you could possibly see.
Yeah.
And even if you subscribe to like 5 magazines 20 years ago, you would see more homes today than you would see if you looked at all those magazines cover to cover, which I think is true. And despite that, you're seeing so much homogeneity, so the same stuff over and over again. And I think some of it's like we have like a tribal nature. We like to, well, this person has it, I want to have it. But I think some of it's like the sort of the rigidity of those styles. First of all, I spent some time in the Czech Republic, so I'm very protective of Bohemia, which has like been extrapolated into now be connected to boho, which I just feel like we've used that term and it's now really just means plants and macrame, which is a bummer for me personally. I feel like I really wish I could take like another whole 45 minutes to discuss that, but nobody wants to hear that. But and there's nothing wrong with it, but I think it's the idea that it becomes a straitjacket or that it becomes a set of rules that we just try to mimic. And so I want to find that exact rug, one shade off, or not even a shade off. I want to buy the exact rug. And now with social media, I mean, God bless it, you can buy somebody's whole room. Yeah. If they have sort of achieved like the sort of the level of boho that you think is cool. I just think, like you said, be curious and be open to a wider range. I always say, I say, if you like magazines or if it's on Instagram, look at everything. So if you say you hate modern stuff, I challenge you to find, influencers and designers that do really modern stuff and just look. If you really love modern, I challenge you to subscribe to Veranda and like these other magazines that have a totally different aesthetic and just take a gander at all these, because I think that spurs creativity. If you're looking at the same thing, you kind of fall into something where it feels like a set of rules and all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I kind of want to paint my cabinets pink, but nobody else does that in my lane. Nobody else. I don't see any pink cabinets in Farmhouse. Well, but that's okay. But maybe you'll be the first one.
Right.
Maybe you'll be the first one. So just taking more risks makes it more enjoyable.
Well, it's being an original, right? Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being an original. We are all unique, and that's okay. It's great to kind of have something as a kind of a guide and kind of give you some ideas and inspire thoughts and things, but definitely at some point be you.
Because I think you're right. I mean, in your book, in the hospitality book, you have like a little primer on different style, like a little guide for different styles, which I think is important because I think some people want to have words to attach to what they like, right? And so I think it is good information to say, you know what, this is what we call eclectic. This is what we call rustic modern. By the way, they keep going. I mean, it used to be like
there's so many.
I'm looking for something and it's like, which style is like 45 words there. It's like rustic, eclectic, modern, bohemian, and they're all getting mangled together, whatever.
Yes.
So, Scandinavian. So I think it's interesting to find the words attached to something that you like. And I'm very, like, there's some sort of more nuanced sort of aesthetics from traditions like Scandinavian stuff where you're like, oh gosh, I'm really drawn to that white floor thing. I might never do it, but I like it. It's nice to know that's where it came from. White floors, because they have winter for almost whole year, winter and darkness for a lot of the year. That's why they do it.
Right.
White furniture, no rugs. It's because they're in darkness,
Right.
I feel like, so it's good to have that knowledge and education is so important, but not to feel like it's now like ironclad, like you can't, like if you don't like plants, you can still draw from like the bohemian sort of tradition. I think that's okay. I think that's a big part of my job. Sometimes giving someone permission. Someone will say, I have this thing. I know it's really dated. I know I should get rid of it, but I just can't. I'm like, we're keeping it. We're working it in. I mean, of course, I love to hear when someone says, I love this. That to me is a beautiful thing that we can now work with this. When they're like, I don't really care about this, and I think it's dated. I'm like, it is dated. Let's get rid of it. But if they have a love for it, then we use it. I mean, that's, and if you wait long enough, it'll be back again anyway. So.
Right. I mean, it always comes back around. So, hello 1980s.
Right. Mauve everywhere. Unbelievable.
I know. It's cracking me up.
It is Golden Girls. The Golden Girls would be Instagram influencers right now. If their house was on Instagram, they would be amazing.
Shocking, really. I mean, I don't know. I thought we had said adios, but here we are.
Nope. Pale pink, pale gray. Bring it, right?
Oh man. Well, I'm so glad that we had a chance to kind of talk through being renamed, and I mean, that's just a beautiful thing. I love that conversation with you.
Yeah, this was a joy. I'll carry this with me for a few days. So thanks, Victoria.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for joining us at Revived and Renovated. And as we talked about Renamed today, we hope you'll join us again next time. Bye.